But as I said, if you feel like substantiating here and there, feel free to do so. But please read.
Thank you. Council has briefed me as well. I'm grateful for that as well.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Chair, then I think we can move on to page 16. Alleged failure to act in relation to 6 EMPD officers arrested for extortion. I think for me, the one incident that I recall, I don't know if it's the same amount of, is it 120,000 or 80,000? But it involved a Sergeant Shirinda, and Sergeant Shirinda was, when he was charged, he was already in my assisting as a protector after I've received certain threats and so on. So he was there. So when he was arrested, Chair, the only part of mine is that it's an HR function to discipline. I didn't know, you don't get involved in to act in any respect of that. What happens is when EMPD officers, because of the history of EMPD officers who go on raids or whatever the work is, and if they're arrested, there is a situation to say that if you need legal services, we assist, because then you're not going to get EMPD officers wanting to go out at night or at any stage. And this happened before, with Chief of Police Mapias approached me, and I said, Chief, give me the facts and then we look at it. So when this incident happened, and there was I don't know if Captain Magagula from the IPID, and it was all over the news and so on in arresting them. So I don't play a role in that. But I did assist in terms of to secure that no other EMPD officers don't want to go out and do the stuff. So give them the legal, let them follow the services. It's not something that has not been done before. It is within our capacity. We do allow them that space. The HR functions, what the HR do about it, whether they decide to wait for the criminal conviction or go ahead with that is entirely. And one of the most tricky things was Magagula in the bail application, when it was delayed, the process was delayed. He raised another issue to use in the bail application to say, no, they're also going to be, I'm charging them on another matter, or they've been charged on another matter, only to later find that the DPP declined to prosecute. So he used information that was already finalized to try and stifle the bail proceedings. So those are some of the things we get involved. But I'm reported by that. So I'm not. But Shirinda has since been taken away from my profile. When he was with me, I had no issues. He's excellent in terms of what services he rendered while he was with me. On page 18, Chair, alleged failure to respond to a complaint by the community liaison officer implicating Brigadier. Chair, the only matter I'm aware of here is the one of the grievance that was raised by Colonel Tepa. Now, Colonel Tepa, apparently she was moved from her position, the unit was disbanded. But that is a process between the city manager, the chief of police. When I engaged in the grievance proceedings, I had formal grievance proceedings. I've got a record of my outcome as well. And only to be told by Mr. Ivan Duplessis that no, it was not the Brigadier Mkunazi who was acting chief of police. It was not his decision. It was the decision of Chief of Police Mapiye to disband. So I had nothing. I looked at the grievance. I said, but you're taking a grievance against Brigadier Mkunazi, whereas the actual decision was taken by Chief of Police together with the city manager. So I did the formal process for that was followed, Chief. So I deny that I ignored that, the process. And in fact, she was also represented by a union from Imatu. And I said to them, take it more serious. If you're not happy with the grievance, you can take it on further. Alleged unlawful participation in the restructuring of the disciplinary and grievance processes. Chair, I think I've spoken to that already. It goes to that way I'm saying, Chair, nothing was unlawful. It was within the realm of the city manager to do that. And my role just came in an added compliance function. Alleged abuse of labor processes to frustrate or remove certain employees. Chair, this, I deny any reference. I mean, the labor processes are there. They're well documented. Everything we did was within the Labor Relations Act. Ms. Nida raised an unfair suspension and an unfair labor practice act. unfair dismissal application. That was before the bargaining councils. So I think it's one of the questions you posed as well, Chair, but it's not in the HR space. And those were the processes that I had to follow. Neither we couldn't find, if you look at even in this, if I refer to there was, which he provided the commission was an NQF level 8. He says, I have the qualification. And he shows an NQF level 8 labor involvement. I think I have a copy as well, Chief. It's on the annexure bundle, page 32, if I'm not mistaken, Chair. Well, apologies, it's from page 28 CV, 31. On page 31 of that annexure bundle, Chair. I've also attached it to my bundle, Chair. To motivate the fact that he had a qualification, he refers to an NQF level 8 advanced labor law. Now, Chair, that is contrary to what the requirements of the advert were. The advert spoke about the B Juris or an NQF level 7 with labor law and others as specialized subjects. Then he used this NQF level, higher level, to say, no, I'm valid within this point to get the job. He gave the commission an NQF level 8. This NQF level 8 certification only came to the attention of the HOD and during the processes in about March 2024. So this comes back from 2009 when he supposedly obtained the... Now, Chair, on his HR file, we did a vetting in 2021 of all the employees to look at ghost employees and so on. On his employment file, I think it's important that I just touch on that and then we move on, Chair. Page 38 of that bundle, you can see the University of South Africa Advanced Labour Law, NQF level 7. So the NQF level 8 was 48 credits. The NQF level 7 was 24 credits for the same what do I say? I can't even call it a qualification, but it seems to be a unit standard towards a qualification at NQF level 7. So these are the things we were dealing with, Chair, when we decided to start looking at how do we recover, because if somebody defrauded the city or any institution, then it's an obligation for me to recover. So those are the certain issues, and we couldn't get a direct answer from him. In fact, we were about to go to the UNISA to say, sort out the discrepancy, because even a letter from a professor from university spoke to an NQF level 7 course at 24 credits, which is used to say that he has that qualification in terms of the advertisement. So on Mr. Nida's is on page 23, Chair. I think I've completed that. If I may move on. Mr. Rivo's piece, Chair, with your permission, on page 25. Chair, Rivo's piece and I, decop Rivo's piece, I've never had an issue with it. The only issue that arose as a result of the investigation into Cintel. Cintel involves almost 100 million rands, which we're still trying to get. I'm trying to get figures from the chief financial officer and the department. I can't understand why, because we need to do the correlation. Why is there a reluctance to give us that information? I see City of Johannesburg also now recently terminated the Cintel investigation. They were this back office fines administration people. River's piece was the project manager of that. So Chief of Police in 2024 June came to me. They were trying to get extensions, but we've been saying, but don't have evergreen contracts. You can't have a company.
Can you please explain what these Cintel traffic fines were?
Okay.
Or the Cintel traffic fine system? What exactly was that?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So Cintel was a group appointed by the city, so that they, when there's cameras in the road, or you're doing your 341s notices, in terms of your fines that you would be getting, there would be the fines administration part. They would be involved in collecting fines, and then there is a portion in terms of the agreement that they would withhold, and then they'll pass the rest off to the city, and then the city has a relationship with province in terms of the Road Traffic Act and all of those legislation for the administration of fines. Now, it came to a stage where the contract was coming to an end. The city decided that, you know what, we're paying too much money to Cintel, and then Cintel had already set up their own collection review, the My City. I think you can see it's My City or My Pay app, which is now linked to this R2 systems where you can be paying. Now, I was interested in the losses to the city because of the correlation. Are they accurately reflecting to the city what they should have been doing?
And you also referred to an unexplained withholding of revenues. Who was withholding the revenues?
Cintel, in the one matter where we found that the contract was extended, and internally they.
All I needed was,
okay,
because this is in the context of what Commissioner Rivers Peace being disciplined.
Yes.
So I wanted to know whether the withholding is alleged to have been by him, or whether it is alleged to have been by Cintel. So you say it was Cintel.
I say Cintel. He was a project manager. He needed to get all the funds, total accounting, before that contract exited.
All right. No, that's enough. I just wanted to, is it Cintel or was it Commissioner
All right.
Space?
No, thank you, Chair.
Cintel. Thank you. Please
but
continue.
Nonetheless, yes, so Cintel is still outstanding, and we're busy with that, Chair. On Colonel Kelebogile Tepa, as I've mentioned already, I think, it was basically the issue of transfer, of her transfer, but that was done between the Chief of Police, City Manager, and I dealt with the brief of it. On Mapia, Chair, as I said, there was a lot of engagements because it was quite serious. For me, it is sexual harassment. I've dealt with it. There was political involvement by Mr. Itzhak Berg, who was the party leader of Independent Ratepay, IRASA, and Tanya Campbell, Mayor Campbell, and there's a councillor called Berg. Pretorius, Brandon Pretorius. So it ends up saying, linking to the executive mayor. So it was not the entire council, that there were a few pockets of who were trying to exert control in terms of chief of police. And even on the settlements. And then the non-paying of attorneys, because hoping, and the effect was, by not paying these attorneys, despite promises to pay them, there was a withdrawal from there, and which you can't blame the advocates for. And that has caused us another problem in terms of finalizing the disciplinary process of the Chief of Police. On page 28, 6.6, alleged improper involvement in the forensic investigation. So the BXBX emails, I've touched on it already. I am the Deputy Information Officer for Popia, with huge fines that can be raised because of what was the content. I raised that as a concern. The city manager then called through the chief audit executive, and they appointed, so I was never involved in the appointment and so on. I only participated thereafter in terms of any information that was required by the investigators. So my role was limited to the fact that I was concerned about the content of the email, and thereafter I raised it, escalated it, and received the report thereafter. Thank you, Chair. On page 30, Chair, alleged failure to adequately address a grievance of Colonel Tepa. Again, that's been done. I have addressed it. I set in a grievance formal process. I have a finalized outcome, which was finding that the Chief of Police was the one that actually did the transfer. Alleged support of City Manager in the usurpation of powers under Section 64C of the SAPS Act. Chair, I just want to spend time on this. This is, for me, even at local government level, it's still a problem at all municipalities, because there's no clear-cut way to say that you are at EMPD or a police department of the metro. You know, although SAPS and the provincial MEC and so on have an impact on the establishment, but once that happens, there's a lot of issues that fall. So I did not at any stage usurp any powers of the chief or assist in any usurpation of powers. The 64C2B of the Act provides that the executive head of the municipal service is responsible for the recruitment. I agree with that. The executive head being the chief of police. But there's a hybrid role. He's the executive head in terms of the SAPS Act for EMPD, but he's also an HOD in terms of Section 56 appointment. HOD is at our level. We do not get involved in the appointment. The most, to the extent I would get involved maybe with a divisional head or a deputy chief of police, and maybe even the executive manager, but not at any lower levels. So as much as I hear what Chief says, overall he's in charge, and he has to approve the appointments and so on. But from my side, and even in my response that I drafted, I even say, I recognize that there could have been things happening. Let's do a policy that could set out very clearly who you deal with. HR will deal with those issues in terms of, I as an HOD, I don't get involved. Chief of Mapia was an HOD as well, in terms of 56. But he had the dual role as an ED, Executive Director in terms of SAPS Act. So it was a dual function. And with the respect of powers of SAPS Act, but also respect of the MFMA and the City and the Systems Act and all the legislation.
I got confused when you said he doesn't get involved, but overall he has to approve. What do you mean by the last part, overall he has to approve?
Okay.
And in the context of the question you are dealing with, if he did not approve, would that be irregular?
Chair, remember at the level of below the divisional head, maybe below the executive manager, you would have, the chief would not be directly involved in the interview process and so on. But then when the appointments come through, he should be the one approving. Even in my instance, if there's junior staff members, they will come to me to say, okay, this is what, and you can't go against what the interview panel said because you're not part of the process. So that is where I'm saying, yes, overall, he has the approving authority to say, I'm approving this, but not, and so on. But generally it comes from appointment of a panel that he appoints. So the panel does the work, and then he looks at the work that done and the report, and then he says, I'm approving it. If I'm not approving it, then he'll say, I'm not approving it based on these issues that I find. So that is the process.
So if he gets told after the event that 60-odd people have been promoted or several other people have been appointed to positions, would that be irregular because he would not have approved that?
That's irregular, Chair, because he should have come to his knowledge to say, I've appointed all of these people. As I said, I've appointed all of these staff members, and then he would have then had the thing to say, okay, but what is this? He could have done that. So he's the head of that in that respect. The SAPS Act, I trust everything. You're satisfied with that, Chair? Can I move on? And I did recognize his authority, and hence I crafted, Chief, let's get together and do a policy that will be very clear that nobody can do this in the future in terms of what happened. Alleged improper upward adjustment. Okay, I think we've dealt with that, Chair. Alleged improper involvement of a draft response to IPID. Chair, and I think I'm also grateful to my evidence leader to give me the last document in the bundle, which was the email from me to Linda Naika. Chair, there was a draft. My role in the legal department, again, is to say, when we hear of anything on fraud and corruption, we go and engage on it, say, where's the fraud and corruption? What do we do? Because I've got obligations to MPAC, I've got obligations to the city, because if the employee decides then I'm going to withdraw, resign, they resign quickly and they take away the salaries and the pension and so on. And then we're sitting with basically not being in a position to recover any impact of fraud and corruption. That report from IPID was addressed to the Chief Mapia. It went in a meeting to the mayor and to the MMC, held by different role players in IPID. It didn't come through the administration. All other reports come, whether it's public report, public protector, SIU, all those reports come to the officer, the administration officer, and that's when I get involved. I mean, there's been an instance when even a public protector report, I had taken on review, and we were successful with the review. So that is my role, to say, what are we doing? Because it's not about finding only faults, it's about concretizing such that we don't leave loopholes in terms of later on proceeding with that. But at no stage it had any implication on me stopping or not proceeding with that. My role and my team's role So you will see the letter which was described as nonsensical. Now, I needed to know, we dealt with only the definitions in terms of what we found, and what were the definitions in terms of fraud, and what were the definitions in terms of preca. So when I received the report, I gave it to my divisional head. He's a seasoned prosecutor, more than 7 to 8 years. I said to him, Jabulo, look at the definitions and see how can we link these matters to that. So he drafted a document, which I sent to the city manager to say this is a draft. That document never went out, Chair. It was portrayed, and I don't know how, because it was never a finalized document. In our meeting with, so city manager, after receiving the document from the mayoral office, called a meeting with a person called Kanye, Osborne Kanye. So when Osborne Kanye was in the meeting with city manager, I happened to be in my office and they called me up. And I had engaged him. I said, but in all of this aspect, why don't you arrest him? No, but he says, if you look at, because I'm confused by your saying, you say proceed with disciplinary. However, the matter is with the DPP. See, I don't know if my understanding is that when you say however, you try and put a different spin on what you said above. So you're saying to me, proceed with the disciplinary, but it's not for me, because Chief had the item for the disciplinary. It was for me to look at what I'm saying and requesting in the meeting with Kanye. Says, but he said, however, the matters of the DPP for decision. So when are you? He said, no, we'll inform you. I'll give you an information. So my draft was, we're always proactive in the department. And I said to the DH, please, but do not send it out, because there is, even that letter, I still have to correct certain aspects. For example, they say I was at a meeting with the mayor. I was not in that meeting. Right. And I heard the issue of the word suggest. Chair, I don't want to get into a link, but I'm saying that from my understanding, it was not a definite, because if you say however, it means I must consider the fact that there's something at the DPP. And what also gives me, when I look at Niza's statement, Niza's statement, when it deals with the Erasmus report in the first one, internal, he says that during April, before he signed off, during April, he had a meeting with Chief of Police. I've got it here. I can refer to for expediency. He says that he was informed that there was imminent arrest from IPID, which included Julius Makunasi. So I'm saying, but you still went on then in April, and he mentions the issue of fruitless, wasteful expenditure. But on the 30th of May, did he decide then to go ahead with that investigation or with the disciplinary process or whatever other process it is? But this is what Kanye told us. He says, no, we're not finalized with the process. So that was in a draft form. It was never a document. I only shared the document with Mr. Philip Rakhwale when, apart from the city manager's office, when he came and he was doing, and he says, but what was the engagements at IPID? And I said, no, there's our draft document. How that was shared to Niza now, to make it look as if it's a final document. Of course, if we didn't go get the full information, it would be nonsense, because we were looking at fraud and corruption. I didn't stop any of the HR discipline. If you wanted to go ahead, go ahead. What has happened to the issue of IPID telling you that there were imminent arrests? IPID never had imminent arrest, or never arrest at all, even up to now. So, Chair, that is where, on that part. So I never improperly involved myself in that. For me, firstly, the draft was not improper, because we were preparing it as a draft document, looking at the documents, which will be finalized when the IPID has responded. I've never signed off on it being the issues that Niza mentioned about me conveniently taking leave and so on. Chair, for me, it's a non-issue. I was on special leave or on family responsibility leave. You don't plan for family responsibility leave when you want to defer, and that's available on my leave records. Okay, Chair, the rest of it talks about that leakage and so on. If we can go, then permit me, Chair, page 39. Allegations are directed EMPD officers who serve documents on Mr. Gneza. Chair, I'm not involved in any service of any documents. That is a function of HR and EMPD. Why would I do this? I wouldn't even do this on my worst enemy. Not that I have any, I don't know if any enemies that I do have. But why would I do that? Because this is an issue that talks about your integrity. It talks about the way people there And I hear him. I mean, he's got a right to complain. But I was not part of that process, Chair. General allegation of implicated other unlawful conduct. Chair, I looked at this regard. I went about this quite a few times since whenever it happened. I can't understand any other unlawful conduct that I'm aware of. Safe to say that I have been under huge pressure because of my approach in compliance in the city. And my conduct is not unlawful in the way of that. For example, Chair, if I may, quickly, I think we're at the end now. Chair, I raised objections to Berg, the mayor, Tanya Campbell, and Pretorius interfering in the processes. To such an extent that after the withdrawal of our attorneys because of non-payment, the attorney for Mapiyeye takes a sensitive matter, heads of arguments, a very sensitive issue concerning sensitive information, and she puts it all to all the councillors. Why would that be for all the councillors to see that this is what's happening? The issues of hacking of information. We're sitting with reports, pro-South. The Hawks matters to which I've referred have been non-existent from Hawks. I only have been working with confidence with the SIU. Many matters, pro-South matters, all involving even the current city manager. Sami building report blocked by the Kopedi because the police wanted to know who were the people involved. Grants in aid, Chair, that's a big, over 100 million involved. But that is my area in which I get involved in. All have been blocked. And that is why now I'm facing repercussions, because Nisa mentioned one thing, Chair, I can take 5 minutes to answer this. He mentioned that the only time I was involved in labor matters was when he dealt with a senior manager. That senior manager was Mojapelo. At the time, Mojapelo was a COO. I did not get instructions from the city manager to do that matter. I got instructions from my HOD at the time and the HOD HR to do. Apparently, Nisa was close to him. And as we were going through to the SIU report, we struggled with evidence because none of the witnesses from the city were forthcoming. And just when I said, no, but we have to get, and Nisa's brother, Tikek Nisa, I'm sure he's in the provincial legislature, or he was there. He's the one that's been putting the pressure on to say that, no. And I said to my HOD at the time, the only people we can call now is Tikek Nisa and Zbu Liope. They're the ones who the evidence is pointing out benefited from this entire thing. The next time I'm here, my HOD pulls me out, he says, no, we settled the matter. So these are the things that I'm now facing a backlash. I mean, business ventures, expropriation without compensation. That matter is of interest throughout the country. I looked at the matter, how do we buy property, or expropriate property, when there's a wetland on the property? Then I was called behind to say, no, but you're not working with us. You know. And the last one, Chair, would be, the important aspect would be then, the rates, the special levy of rates for the residents of Ekurhuleni. You put in a special levy, then you only for when Tembisa's uprising happened, then you decide to go back. But your initial process of public participation was flawed. So you seek to collect an extra money from the citizens without, then they decide to go back for the public participation. And it led to them having to cancel that, which has caused a loss of about 200 million. My interest is on the citizens of Ekurhuleni, it's on the city of Ekurhuleni. I don't get involved in individual politics or individual thing. I know it's portrayed that I was close of city manager. The extent of my relationship with the city manager was as my accounting officer, and I continued calling as city manager, and that's it, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, where does that fit in the statement, just for my benefit?
Which one,
or
Chair?
were you just saying it as a by the way?
Which one, Chair?
The issue of the raids and Tembisa and the uprising.
It goes into
which section?
It goes into the political interference part. Even the cases that were not pursued, I was being stifled from that. I've got details of that cases. Even when the HODs have agreed that there is criminal activities. But because I've been brought forward, the executive mayor said, but why are you pushing with these things coming? And I've got here with a former MMC for legal. The daughter benefited about 500,000, that is the allegation, from a grants in aid fund which is meant to help the poor and destitute. So Chair, I hope, so that's part of the political interventions, the political part that I've raised too. Thank you, Chair. I think that will be...
Thank you very much, Mr. Behari.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Behari. Mr. Behari, I just wanted to go back to your statement where you deal with your position prior to your appointment as a risk and legal. That was only in 2024, correct?
Yes.
And prior to that, there was the 22 August 2023 directive by the city manager, which brought about some kind of a legal review of disciplinary matters, which effectively said that your department would review decisions to go ahead with disciplinary proceedings against senior personnel. Is that correct?
No, well, not totally. If I can just clarify that. So, when the letter of 22 August 2023 came about, it was for us to get involved in the added leg of compliance. So if you look at the form that is filled in, there's three aspects to it. One is further investigation, the other one is internal disciplinary, and then the disciplinary tribunal. So we're not involved. I can just recommend to say, in terms of additional information, I believe you should be able to secure it this way. In terms of an investigation internally, but it goes through, ultimate approver is the HOD of HR, and she relies on the input that I raised there into the matter. So that is what...
Okay, just go to paragraph 18 of your statement on page 5, where you deal with that aspect.
Yes, sir. Page 5, paragraph 18, yes.
Yes. So you say a further structural development occurred on 22 August 2023 when the city manager issued a directive introducing an enhanced compliance review step in all disciplinary grievance processes involving senior personnel. This directive required that such matters be subjected to a legal compliance assessment before charges were finalized or outcomes implemented. Its purpose was to reduce legal exposure, ensure procedural fairness, and improve the city's historically poor success rate in labor disputes.
Yeah, just on that, the one part I want to discuss, it wasn't only on senior personnel. It was basically across, I scratched it out here, but I didn't, put it on the, so just on all personnel. And it comes from, I'm not sure exactly when that meeting happened between chief of police and city manager and so on. But it emanated thereafter on the issue, concerns about lost cases and so on. But I maybe, but that is what it concerned, adding an extra leg to say, can you look at then, and that's one of the functions I did when I was looking at the initial report by Erasmus. So we just brought in that experiences from there and brought it into the system to say, now, so the only person that was actually not there now, but it comes to the HOD. Tulani Niza was in any event, had to do whatever he did on that stage with the HOD's consent. Mine was just to bring in an added leg from a legal point of view because we deal with the cases that are lost. We deal with the cases thereafter that will be implemented and that going to other courts. So that is where it is, Chair. But if there's anything more specific, I will...
But what weight did that legal compliance assessment have in the process of the disciplinary proceedings? So if your decision was to not continue with the disciplinary proceedings, but the HOD was of the view that there is a case, a good enough case for it to go to disciplinary, how would you resolve that conflict?
That was because it was never my role to say, in terms of approving or saying it can go to disciplinary. The HOD of the department who raises the issue will do an internal investigation. They will do that. So that investigation will come through. It'll never stop anyone, any of the functionary, never change anything else. Apart from me then coming in to say, okay, the HOD gives you the report. I will look at the report and say, right, come, do you need an internal disciplinary process? Or do you need an external process? Then I would say to the HOD, in my comments, to the HOD HR, to say, I support this, or this needs to be looked at further. Can we get this information? And so on. But it was never for me, it was just to say, these are the issues I picked up. I think we can use that to tie up so that we're secure, because over the last 2 years, we've had union litigation upon litigation. And these are some of the issues that is why they brought it between HOD, HR, and myself to say, look at this. And I can never stop any disciplinary from going on. I leave it to the HOD. I said, these are the issues. Can we cure it by further investigation, by these are issues? I'll even guide that. For example, if I can, by way of an example, on the 1st of December, there was a matter came back about the Firearms Control Act and to charge somebody who had lost a firearm and failed to disclose. So they wanted to charge her for discipline as well. So all I said to them was, please go back, look at then who was in the control of the documents. But why your policy says there will be 3 monthly inspections. Where is that? So I asked them to get that added inspection report to say what has happened. It's just to strengthen any case that we're dealing with, but not to, I mean, the HOD HR will probably say, no, I hear you, or no, I don't agree. And she can take that decision. But from my side to say, give us an added leg of compliance in terms of that.
Okay. Now, this system only came into effect on from the 22nd of August 2023.
That's correct.
So when Mr. Erasmus approached you in May of 2023 regarding Commissioner Mkwanazi's matter, this system was not yet in place?
No, it was not.
Okay. And can I just understand, when would he have met with you? We know that the suspension, Commissioner Mkwanazi's suspension was going to lapse, the 3-month suspension was going to lapse on the 24th of May, 2023. So when would he have come to see you?
The Commissioner Erasmus, as I said, he came to me. If it was like for me preparing an exact time, I would have, knowing about this further, I would have said to you. But it was before the suspension lapsed. It was immediately, I think it was the last week or latter part of May, but before the suspension lapsed. And by that time it was too late, because if I'm looking at investigation finished March, April, NISA decides to say, okay, we're approving and he appoints then on the 30th of May. So from April to 30th of May, it's almost a month and a half. Nothing happened. And then you're coming to me at the last minute and say, please, can you do that? Now, as I said, Erasmus and I, we go for, a lot of the officers, HODs, senior personnel, come to me. If I'm in the office, I'll see them. I don't make appointments. The only one I've documented is when Chief of Police said to me, can I see you on the 21st? And that is when I put it down. But it's quite correct. Before the 22nd of May, there was no formal structure like this that you had to come to me. It came to me because Erasmus came to me to say, can I support an extension of the suspension from a compliance perspective? But it comes at the latter part, towards the very end of it. Even the letter from Chief of Police to me, dated 21 June, is asking for me to assist there. But by that time, and they had until July. If I look at the disciplinary code, they had until July to serve and finalize the charges. And if, for any reason, the processes were delayed, you could also ask for a further suspension or a further time of another 3 months, as provided in the disciplinary code.
Isn't that what he was coming to you for guidance on that aspect, the extension of the suspension, not the merits of the disciplinary process itself and the charges?
Counsel, when he comes to me to support an extension of a suspension, I cannot say, in light of the very serious charges that are against Mkwanazi, and I want to know who are the witnesses, because the two witnesses that are there must be other witnesses who will supplement a positive case. So I have to go into that. I've got to delve into that to see, but what are the other issues that would be here? It's not about this, when you come to ask me to extend the suspension, you have to tell me, but why could you not do it all this time? Because we suspended from February. What are the issues that led to the stage now where you're coming for an extension at the latter part of May? And that's when I looked at the document. Then I said to him, no, I'll have to speak to the chief as well. So that is where it was, Chair.
Okay, and when you then give him the guidance, which we will get to from page 13 on your assessment of the case, I understand you to be saying that you took the docket or the file away from him for a short period to review. So you didn't make a decision or give your view to him then and there on that day when he saw you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
It was about 2 days, I think, 1 or 2 days. Yeah.
And apart from him, who else did you discuss the matter with before you gave him your view on the merits of the case?
Besides Chief, because he was the one who drafted the documents, and I asked these questions, the next person was the Chief of Police.
Okay, but you only meet with the Chief of Police on the 21st of June, 2023, correct?
21 June 2023, that's correct?
Yes, but Erasmus had come to you before the 24th of May 2023. So it's about a month between the two meetings.
Yeah, okay, in terms of formal discussions, but I was given city manager, because she has an interest there, to say, city manager, we're looking at these issues. We're looking at these issues of Erasmus is with me, I'm speaking to the Chief of Police. But that would have been a verbal communication as well. It wouldn't have been a formal matter. The only formal letter was when the email went out to Linda Nike, which is concerning the IPID update.
Okay, so you discussed it with Erasmus, the city manager, and then on the 21st of June 2023, you discussed it with the Chief of Police.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the way your statement reads, it's as though by the time you speak to the Chief of Police on the 21st of June, you had already formed an opinion on the merits of the case. Because the Chief of Police, in his letter that he sends to you after that meeting, says, having discussed the matter, and he explains to you why he disagrees with your views. So you had already formed the view then before you spoke to him, correct?
That's correct, because I went through the documents. When I looked at the file, I formed a view that there were certain aspects that needed to be addressed. And they linked then to the State of the City address and so on. So I formed the view. So the meeting with the Chief of Police and I would have taken under an hour. So it wasn't a long meeting. It was about an hour where I said to Chief, these are my concerns. And I think, Chief, that if we don't address these adequately, in terms of what you found at the State of the City address, because it cannot be said that it was just the issue of there's a full value chain of how CAT VIP and so on came to the office, into the city of Ekurhuleni. So let's look at those aspects. And that is where my issue was, an opinion to say, yes, these are the issues we looked at.
But did you have a discussion with the HOD HR?
No, the HOD HR at that stage, because it was still dealt with, you remember Chief deals with the disciplinaries? I had no discussion with the HOD because the extension of suspension application would be dealt with by HR. So this was between the Chief of Police and myself.
Okay.
Can I just ask? When Mr. Erasmus comes to you, or Colonel Erasmus comes to you about an extension, why did you not direct him to the HR people? Because as you correctly say, disciplinary matters are HR matters.
Yes, Chair, because it is the HR persons were already dealing with a possible extension of the suspension. He was looking for compliance comments to support in doing that. So that's why he came to me from the compliance perspective. Is there something that I could support it? Because if it goes then to the HR, it is more likely that the HR would grant a suspension. But that is when I picked up on those issues, I could not then, without having those issues addressed, grant or finalize at that stage, and I said, let's speak to the Chief of Police.
Okay. Sorry, I don't understand. You say in your statement that he came to you regarding the impending expiry of the precautionary suspension, and I understood your evidence earlier to be exactly that. He came to speak to you about an extension, or that the suspension is about to expire. What do we do?
Yeah.
I understood that to be your evidence.
Chair, my evidence, yes, in the main, but it was about trying to get compliance support from me to give him support, favorable comments to send through to the HOD, who deals with the extension. That's not my process. But to look at compliance comments, which I could support for that extension. And then when I looked at the file a day or two afterwards, or engaged with the file, and when I met him again, that is when I said to him, but you need, these are the risks I'm seeing. The extension is one issue, but how far are you, which other witnesses are you going to get? Because when you're asking for extension in our environment, you're going to say, which other witnesses are you still looking at getting? The first witness, Jeff Wicks, we don't know what happened to him, whether he was coming in or not, because the chief of police sent him an invite. Mgwabe seems to be not very committal about what happened there. All Mgwabe says is that he raised it with the senior management. He raised the report on the donations with the senior management. There's nothing further from there. Christine talks about certain issues of other donations dealt with this issue. And I said to him, but from a compliance perspective, the issue of nothing stops you from going on with the disciplinary. In terms of even the extension of suspension, even if the suspension occurred, there are processes in place when you're finding a matter for condonation to deal with that. And these are some of the issues I dealt with, because if the suspension had occurred, what else could you have done? Or the suspension ended, you could still go on with the disciplinary.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that you're answering my question. My question really is, when he came to you, and according to your evidence, and I think you've just confirmed it now, that he came to speak to you about the pending expiry of the suspension, you seem to have gotten into the merits, but I'm more interested in what did you say to him about the suspension? Did you say to him there are grounds to to extend it, or you're getting into the merits means you got to a point where you said no, there's no valid basis to extend? That's what I'm trying to understand, because he's coming to ask you about extension.
Okay. Chair, there was no outcome on that. My issue was when I looked at it, I said, Erasmus, this is where I'm looking at. Have you addressed these issues? We did not finalize that. I did not give anything to say that these are the issues. I'm not granting you the extension or not. Address the issues here. Same thing with MAPIA. Address the issues.
So you discuss the merits.
I discussed the issues.
He comes to you about an extension that's about, a suspension rather, that's about to expire. You'd instead discuss the merits.
The merits were, with me, from a compliance perspective, I cannot devoid myself.
I'm not yet at why did you discuss the merits. I'm just trying to get the facts from your evidence.
Yes, I got into the merits.
You instead discussed the merits.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Still on the same subject. So in paragraph 54 of your statement, you mentioned the impending expiry of the suspension to which my co-commissioner, Commissioner Ballo, has just referred you. And then at the top of page 14, and this is now paragraph 55, you say I identified several material evidentiary gaps which posed a foreseeable risk to the sustainability of the disciplinary proceedings. And then at paragraph 60, you say, I regarded these gaps as significant. And then in paragraph 61, 62, 63, 64, you then say you met Colonel Erasmus and told him your views about the merits being what my co-commissioner engaged you on, Commissioner Baloyi. Now, I do not understand why you should have chosen to deal with the merits and not with what Colonel Erasmus came to you about. I understand your emphasis about your concern being compliance. You've said that umpteen times, and you said it even before Ms. Silva started engaging you. You emphasize that. But point is, the Colonel comes to you for specific advice on an impending expiry of the suspension. Why do you not deal with that?
Chair, I did deal with it in the sense that I'll ask him to leave the file with me. Now, for a suspension, in the labor environment, suspension is not punitive. Suspension does not stop anybody, and you cannot say that if something else comes in, nothing stops you from resuspending him. That is the processes that in our city we experience that. So I had to delve into the merits to see what...
Show me in your statement where you dealt with it, responding to Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice from you. Show me in your statement where you dealt with it. Insofar as the subject related to Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice, show me where in your statement you dealt with it.
Did I suggest... sorry, Chair, I just want to...
Show me in your statement where you dealt with it. Insofar as Colonel Erasmus, who sought advice from you, was concerned.
It's not in the statement itself. Let me go 61, 62. Please, with your indulgence, Chair. These are the engagements I've had with Colonel Erasmus verbally when he returned to me on that date. And my issue was, if you want me to extend or support an extension of the suspension, what would be the material facts that I would have to use to...
But your statement is quite detailed, Mr. Behari. Why would you leave out something that related to what he came to you about? Your statement is quite detailed. It says nothing in response to Colonel Erasmus about the extension of the suspension.
Chair, I did not finalize the process of saying to him I support it or not.
Why not?
Because I was still waiting for him to confirm to come on another date after I've seen the documents. So when I saw the documents and I discussed it with him, and I said to him, these are the issues, I need to speak to the Chief of Police, because I'm not satisfied that we will be, and these are the issues I raised.
You see, my problem is, later when you talk about the head, Commissioner Mapia, you say that by then the suspension had expired. So you were working within very short and tight timelines. You raise all of these issues. They have nothing to do with the impending expiry of the suspension. You raise all of these issues. Time is running. What do you do about the expiry of the suspension? Bear in mind, Mr. Behari, that the suspicion, false or correct, the suspicion is that you were part of a clique that was protecting Brigadier Mkwanazi. So those who are on the other side, in quotation marks as it were, will say you let the suspension expire exactly because you are on Brigadier Mkwanazi's quote-unquote side, as it were. Do you get the context? I come back to my question and I ask, why did you not give advice to Colonel Erasmus on the extension of the suspension? That's what he came to you about, not all of the issues that you then raised or chose to raise with him. Why did you not give him advice on what he came to you for?
Chair, Colonel Erasmus, on the second date after looking at the documents, I had to inquire, if you're going to you must have a reason for extending the suspension. There must be valid reasons in terms of other witnesses still to come. If he had dealt with that, he never gave me a response to my questions. Who are the witnesses? So in our engagement, if he had told me at that stage, but Mr. Behari, we've got the stuff, I need this, They would have been finalized then, Chair. He never gave me the responses to say that.
Had you taken a definitive view on what you saw as gaps? Had you taken a definitive view that says there are gaps and there is no way that these gaps may be plugged? Had you taken a definitive view in that regard?
No, Chair. When I had it was a conversation with Erasmus to say these are challenges, but tell me.
Now, if you had not taken a definitive view, surely that must mean that you had not discounted the possibility that further investigations just might plug those gaps. Is that not correct?
The further investigations, Chair, would have certainly plugged it if those gaps. But mine was to say to Chief.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough for mine.
It would have been at the time, Chair, when I looked at the matter, and I said to him, "But these are the concerns I have." If he said to me, "No, I still need this witness," and so on, during our conversation, I would have had no problem with that. Chair.
No. It could not simply have depended on what he said. You are the head of legal.
Yes.
You have just accepted now that those gaps could have been plugged. Not so. You've just said now.
No, correctly, Chair.
Now. How can you throw it back at him if you yourself think that these gaps can be plugged? Is the obvious thing to do not to actually give him time to plug those gaps? If, as you say, they were capable of being plugged, why don't you say, my advice to you, which is what you've come to me about, is an extension of the suspension. That will give you time to plug these gaps. Was that not the obvious thing for you to do?
In hindsight, Chair, now that I hear you put it that way. In hindsight, now that I hear you say it that way.
You accept.
Yes, because, let me leave it at that.
Was it not obvious even at the time? I don't think it's enough for you to say that in hindsight you accept. Was it not obvious even at the time? Why put stumbling block after stumbling block after stumbling block without giving him solutions? He has come to you for a solution.
Chair, at the time, the solution was for me to say, go and complete the investigations. Go and do the stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And for that to happen, Mr. Behari, he needs time. And he can only have enough time if you agree to the extension of the suspension. The suspension was not was for a purpose. It was not for the sake of it. Suspension should be removed from the system for proper investigations to take place. So why do you not give him time to do that by assisting him with what he came to you for, extending the suspension? It's not enough to say in hindsight you agree with me.
Chair, when he came to me, it was about supporting the extension of a suspension. We had an engagement. I said to him, these are what I think are problematic. These are things we have to close, and these are the witnesses we have to include. It didn't finalize. I said, can I speak to the Chief of Police? And then the next meeting was the Chief of Police called me. But that was by the time the suspension had lapsed. But I didn't deal with any
Effectively, you let the suspension expire, Mr. Behari. You let the suspension expire.
Chair,
you are raising all the problems with him, and you say, I'm going to speak to the Chief of Police, and by the time you speak to the Chief of Police, the suspension has expired. You let it expire.
Chair, but Chair, there was never an intention to let the suspension expire. My intention was to make sure that we have all the processes, because as I said, applying the laws to say that a suspension is not punitive. Nothing stops us from still carrying on and saying that we have new information to resuspend. The HOD HR could have resuspended. But for me, looking at it, and I know you mentioned that I'm going on about the compliance issue. That was what was important to me. How do you finalize these gaps? And Erasmus could not give me at that stage any response, but it could be taken as, and I say to you that I let it lapse, but it was never my intention. My intention was to look at how do we finalize and close all the gaps. The suspension could always have gone back and said, to the HOD. Let's resuspend. There's been other cases where we've resuspended. Suspension lapse, we resuspended.
Yes. You see, I would understand you, Mr. Behari, on your point about the possibility of continuing with investigations even when the person is back with their suspension having expired. I would understand if you were saying that, having told Colonel Erasmus in so many words that, Colonel, I have all these gaps which need to be plugged, but let the suspension expire. You can continue with your investigation to plug these gaps with Brigadier Mkwanazi back at work. I would understand if that was your approach and if that was what you communicated to Colonel Erasmus. You never did that. You are now stating this in the witness box.
Chair, because as I said, that is the policies of the city. These are legislation.
I understand the policies. I understand the prescripts. But the point I'm raising relates to your response to Colonel Erasmus when it comes to you for advice. Sitting there now, you tell us that in accordance with our prescripts, even if a suspension has expired, investigations may continue. You are saying that in the witness box, but Colonel Erasmus came to you for advice. You never responded to him that way. That is the point I'm raising. It's different from the question of prescripts that you are raising.
Chair, as I could say, is I focused on the issues. Colonel Erasmus, as I said, I'm aware of the processes in terms of suspensions. If the suspension lapses, we've dealt with that previously, where we can always suspend again. Because there's new issues that came in.
Can you please focus on how you dealt with Colonel Erasmus? Please,
but that was
please do not focus on the prescripts. I understand them.
Okay, but
Can you focus on how you dealt with Colonel Erasmus? That's my issue.
Chair, there was no definitive response to Colonel Erasmus. I did say to him I will discuss it also with the Chief of Police, because even if the suspension lapsed, then I could have still discussed it with the Chief and said, right, once we finalize it, let's go proceed further on that issue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? After the suspension lapsed, you would have been aware, because you say in your statement it was impending, the lapse. After it had lapsed, did you ever say to Erasmus and to Mapiaye, in the light of the serious allegations mentioned in Erasmus's investigation, the city has the power to resuspend, so I advise you to consider that as an option? Did you ever do that?
Now, I didn't say it in so many words, because it is available within the HR space that you can do that.
No, but
I did not.
Either you did or you did not. And if you did not, just say, I did not advise
Chair,
them.
I did not give them that. After Erasmus finished off with Erasmus, there was a break with the Chief of Police. The issue of suspension then never came out thereafter, because there was other issues. I understand that, I don't know how far that process is followed, but it seems to be, when I spoke to the Chief of Police on
Advocate
the 21st.
Behari, you are the head of legal within Ekurhuleni. You know if the power to resuspend is there in the prescripts. The reason Erasmus came to you in the first place was he was aware of the impending period, and he was asking you for support. You are now aware that the period has come and gone, and the effect of that is that Mkwanazi is back at work. You know that.
Yes.
And you're now engaging with the two of them, Mapiaye and Erasmus, on the seriousness, and we'll still come back to that later on, the seriousness of the allegations. But as head of legal, at no point do you advise the city manager or Mapiaye or Erasmus that there is a power to resuspend. These are serious allegations. Erasmus probably needs time to plug all these gaps. I find that astonishing.
Chair, if I may, when I raised those issues with both Mapiaye and Erasmus, I had nothing further after my last meeting with Chief of Police. Now, if he had come back and we've plugged the gaps, but there was no response due to the nature of issues I've raised with the Chief of Police. There was no further comeback to me. And if they say we've addressed the issues that you raised in our meeting, can we now go on? And I would have said, yes, certainly, let's go to a resuspension. That is how we've done resuspension, to say, this is what the initial circumstances were. We've addressed that, and now we can go on. But that matter seemed to have stopped or stalled. The last was on the 21st of June. And then I heard nothing further from that.
Mr. Behari, I have an issue with the notion that Colonel Erasmus approached you on the issue of the suspension. You didn't tell us why he wanted the extension of the suspension, because in your statement you say that he told you that he had concluded his investigation and wanted an extension pending the disciplinary action. Why did he want the extension pending the disciplinary action if the investigation, according to him, had been concluded?
Chair, those were the issues when he came to me saying that the investigation was concluded. He wanted me to support an extension. Now, if you look at the conclusion of that, when I raise these issues, but is your investigations complete? And given the fact of the witnesses that you're going to call for the disciplinary inquiry, I extended that to say, but these are the witnesses. Do you not have to revisit anything? Are there any other witnesses? Do you have to get a statement from Mr. Jeff Weeks? Do you have to look at the engagements with Mwabe, Christine? So, if those had been completed and returned to me, certainly we could have suspended. But anyway, I would have supported another suspension through the HR processes.
Yes, but I think that goes to if the investigation is not complete. He comes to you and says the investigation is complete. I've concluded my investigation, but I still want an extension pending the disciplinary action. Surely those reasons must be different to I still have an investigation to conclude. And if those reasons are different, you can't even go into the merits because he said to you, I've concluded my investigation, but I want the extension suspended pending the disciplinary action. So there must have been a different reason other than the conclusion of the investigation, other than filling gaps, because he comes to you on the premise that the investigation has been concluded. And you know as a lawyer that one of the reasons could be that the safety of the witnesses if he comes back to work, or that he might intimidate workers or he might influence evidence. You in your statement, you don't say why he asked for the extension. And in light of the suggestion that Chief of Police Mapieye says you took the docket from him, he was pressurized to give the docket to you. It seems to me that Colonel Erasmus' approach for an extension is a convenient explanation as to why you inserted yourself into this process in the first place. Because he had no reason to ask you for the extension. We have no record of him even requesting the extension, and it would seem to me that he would go to someone else who had already been involved in the process, like the Chief of the Police or head of HR, to speak to them about the extension. So you aren't able to tell us what he asked you the extension for, what was the motivation for it, because the investigation was concluded. And all that you give him in response to that is gaps about an investigation that he told you has been concluded. And that is, I think, the difficulty that we have, is that you're not telling us why he came to you in the first place. It couldn't have been to finalize his investigation.
Chair, Mr. Erasmus never came to me to grant an extension. He never came to me to grant an extension. He gave to me to say that the process of extensions is with the HR process. I need some comments to support that. And then I started, okay, Henny, is your case finished? You say, I see your report says investigation is complete on this day. So what do you need the extension for? And if you need the extension, are there any other witnesses that you still need to secure? Are there, because in my environment, Chair, you don't grant an extension for the mere asking. You know, I've got to apply my mind to say, well, what else is still required? And if there is a process then after that to say, I've raised, and look at it, are you going to close up the gap with Christine? Are you going to close up the gap with Guabe? These are some of the issues. I think I've documented that in terms of the issues I raised. So there was never approach to me to grant an extension. It was to support that, and I engaged with it to say this is what our issues are and what are the reasons for. You have to have the reasons why. I could say to the HOD HR, I support these reasons. Can we go on?
Yes.
Mr. Behari, in your paragraph 54, you say he came to you to seek guidance regarding the impending expiry of the precautionary suspension. So, in your own words, that's why he approached you. It had to do with a suspension that was about to expire. And then you say he advised that he had concluded his investigation and wished to extend the suspension pending disciplinary action. So you tell us that's what he came to speak to you about. You then, in the next following paragraphs, you tell us that you pointed out the gaps, what you say are the gaps. But you don't say to us, I then told him the extension can be extended. I mean, the suspension cannot be extended because of these gaps. You don't say that, even though that's why he came to you. But there's a different point I want to make about it. It is, Colonel Erasmus tells you, I've completed my investigation. I want to keep this man on suspension. You raise issues with that, but you don't say to him, because you're going to investigate these gaps, while you deal with these gaps, extend the extension. You're the one that raises gaps. The owner of the case is satisfied that he's concluded his investigation. You raise issues, the absence of a statement from Jeff Wicks, absence of statement from Deputy Chief Mzolo. You say the content of DCP Gwabe's statement. I don't know why that is a gap to do with suspension. And then you say a letter from Christine indicating the acceptance of donated vehicles. I don't know what that has to do with a suspension, the extension of a suspension, but maybe I should put it more positively. I don't think it has anything to do with whether you extend or not. But the two that you say are absent, the statements. So you lead him on a path where you say, go find this, or these are issues. But you don't say to him, because you're going to be looking at these things, you should extend. You don't say that. Can you just explain that behavior?
Yeah, I did not say to him that I will support the extension to the. I asked him to go. Have you dealt with these issues? And from there, he indicated that he understood he would address those issues. But I did not then say to him, no, I'll support your extension in the meantime, because it could have been that I should have done that. But I did not say I'll support your extension in the meantime. I said I'd like to speak to the Chief of Police as well to say that how can we finalize that. Because if they come back...
I think that the problem, and what I'm asking you to explain, is when you say to him, go and close these gaps, how is it that you don't say to him, in the meantime, while you are looking at these gaps, you will extend, you should extend the suspension? I mean, that's why he came to you. He wants to extend the suspension. You raise problems to do with his matter, and then you don't say to him, because you're going to address, while you address these two issues, or these four issues according to you, then there should be an extension. You don't say that to him. And I'm asking you to explain the absence of that kind of advice to him after you pointed out gaps that he needs to go and investigate further according to you.
Chair, when I guided, or for the guidance in the engagements with Erasmus, when I pointed out these issues to deal with, at that stage, Chair, when he came to me, I did not have to say, what are the grounds for further extension of this process? Because you said to me your investigations are complete. Yes, I opened certain issues, and to go that. So knowing that there could have been a resuspension when it was finalized, I then did, in fact, yes, I did not deal with it totally. Instead of saying to him, I've guided you in this way, maybe I ought to have done that. But I did not do it at that stage.
It's not even a maybe to me, at least how I think about it. It seems to be the logical conclusion, should have been the logical conclusion of your discussion, because the reason he comes is, what do I do? His suspension is about to expire. I need to talk to you about that. You don't advise him on that. You are silent about that. Instead, you give him problems, right? You say to him, go address these gaps. And I'm saying to you, it seems to me, in fact, it seems to me that the logical conclusion of this conversation, where you have pointed out problems, would and should have been, no, you don't have a good reason to to extend the suspension, or in the light of these further investigations, and I suggest it should be the latter, in the light of these further investigations that I'm indicating to you, that in itself is a ground to extend. You should extend it before it expires. I don't understand how you did not advise on this that he approached you about, especially where the only advice, or reasonable advice rather, let me say, would have been, in the light of the issues I've raised with you, you do have a reason to go and extend the suspension.
Chair, I believe at that stage it would be premature for me to have done that, to have supported the extension. And then by that time I understood from him there was already an extension request to the HR department. But he was coming to me to give that added aspect. And for me, I believe it will be premature until we finalize those issues that I had raised. So I didn't proceed that way.
So are you saying when he came to you to ask you for advice or to have a discussion with you about the extension of the suspension, a request had already been made to HR to extend? That's
what I understood. There was something. So he wanted me to give him comments that could have been supporting, they could take it to HR. And that is when I raised the issue. I understood that it was already going to HR for the extension of the suspension.
So your discussion with him about the extension would have been a waste of time then, if the request was already with HR?
Well, if I could, if it was still at HR, and if I give him, if everything was in order there, and I found the reason, I could have sent through the support to the HR department.
Thank you.
I'm confused right now. Let me start here. Did I understand you correctly before my co-commissioner started engaging you? Did I understand you correctly that in response to Ms. Siegel's Ncube, you said Colonel Erasmus had not come to you for advice? I thought I heard you say so.
He's not come to me for the extension. He's come to me to deal with the guidance.
He had not come to you for advice on the extension.
No, not come to me for an extension. I think that is where I understood to talk about an extension itself. But he had come to me for advice to look at how we could support the extension to the HR process.
I find it strange that your statement is silent on this thing about HR, which you suddenly mention now that you are being asked pointed questions. Your statement is quite detailed. It's one of the longest we have had in this commission. It's 44 pages long, quite detailed on all the subjects. There is no mention at all of HR. You suddenly mention HR when we question you for not having given advice to Colonel Erasmus on what he had come to you about, which was guidance regarding the impending expiry of the suspension. That's what your statement says in so many words in paragraph 54. He had come to you to seek guidance on the impending expiry of the suspension. Now we ask you questions around why you never gave that advice. Now you suddenly say, no. With regard to the extension of the suspension, that was a process that was before HR, and therefore I did not have to give advice. How is that so when your statement is so detailed?
Chair,
how is it that your statement does not mention AR?
Chair,
Would I be unfair? Would I be unfair if I suggest to you that you are suddenly mentioning HR because you are faced with difficulties? Because now you cannot tell us why you did not advise Colonel Erasmus on what you had come to him about, or rather, on what he had come to you about.
Chair, at the time Colonel Erasmus came to me, there was already a process for the extension pushed through to HR. He wanted me to give him some supporting comments and advice that I could support it to HR, to the HR HOD. That is where the extent is when I raise the issue. So for me to support anything without having the full details.
And your statement says nothing about any of that insofar as it relates to HR. It says nothing about that. You only mention it for the first time when we question your failure to advise him on what he, in your own words, had come to you about. That's when you mention HR for the first time. Yes, it gives you a way out. You try to get away from the difficulty facing you by suddenly mentioning HR. I suggest to you, Mr. Behari, that you are mentioning HR for the first time because you cannot answer the questions we are putting to you about your failure to advise Colonel Erasmus on what he had sought your advice.
Chair, I cannot, I hear you, but I cannot support that. I respect that fact that Erasmus came to me on the way to HR for the approval of that.
Okay.
I then raised the issues which I said to, if I'm going to support an extension, these are the issues that need to be addressed. I did not have at that stage any information, and I believed it to be premature to me to even look at supporting a suspension. That was the process already going through. So yes, my statement doesn't deal with HR because I've dealt with what I was dealing with Erasmus. This has come through now in terms of when we engaged, there was a process for extension because the extension of the suspension would have had to be before the end of, sometime toward the end of May. So he came to me during the time or very close to that, with 1 or 2 days, I think, before that. So if I'd asked for any further information and extended that, I understood it, but it was a process on its way to HR. So my apologies if I didn't, in my statement, deal with it, but that is the process there at HR. I was in the way to say, so please, can you support this? I raised issues on what,
and what you raised as gaps, were these even gaps? Were these even gaps? Let's look at the first one, the one about an outstanding statement from Mr. Jeff Wicks. Mr. Jeff Wicks had raised issues that were or ought to have been within the knowledge of EMPD officials. Is that not correct?
Chair, with regard to Jeff Wicks, it came to the knowledge of EMPD officials, Reverse Peace, through Jeff Wicks.
Yes.
Now, in my engagements, whatever issues we're dealing with, we have a primary, in terms of the value chain of the evidence, to say, who did you get the information from? So if Jeff Wicks was there, and Chief of Police wrote a letter to Jeff Wicks, so I asked him, did Jeff Wicks respond? Because there was a letter. So either Jeff Wicks said, no, I'm not coming to the process or whatever. It wasn't there. It wasn't obvious from that engagement. Then the next witness was Mzola.
No, before you move to someone else, I'm saying the issues raised by Mr. Jeff Wicks were issues that the EMPD could, within the EMPD, have been able to establish for itself. Is that correct or not?
It would not have, the issue of the blue lights, they could have done that. The issue of the donations, they could have done it. That's correct.
Yes.
But still, it must emanate from somewhere, Chair. The the investigation comes from somewhere. It comes from Mr. Wicks. If there's any questions posed to EMPD,
all that he did was to bring into the public domain facts of which the EMPD people were either aware or could easily have become aware, and you've already accepted that.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why you would have insisted on a statement by Mr. Jeff Wicks. I don't understand that.
Chair, I did not insist and say he must get a statement from Jeff Wicks.
But that was one of your gaps.
Yes, the names were there to say, did you get a statement from Jeff Wicks? Because after the letter from Chief of Police Wicks, we had nothing further. So if you were saying to me that Wicks is not prepared to come, then that's a different story, Chief. But that seemed to be still an outstanding matter, which I was not made aware of.
Outstanding matter for the sake of it, Mr. Behari, so far as I'm concerned. And truth be told, were you seriously expecting to get a statement from Mr. Jeff Wicks? I'm not suggesting that journalists should not give statements, but you and I know the attitude of journalists. Were you seriously expecting to get a statement from Jeff Wicks? Was this not just a way of blocking progress on this matter?
Chair, respectfully,
Yes.
I seriously, in all my experience, I've always looked at the cycle of evidence.
Yes.
Where does it start from? Where does it end? This came through from Mr. Jeff Wicks. If he was not prepared to do that, then we have to deal with it separately. But I was seriously expecting, because we have many instances when we have even emails that are coming through, emails that are generated from untraceable accounts. If we're going to go and investigate every one of those issues, and then when it comes to a situation where I prove it, where you got the information from, you don't want to have a situation where possibly the hearsay issues come in. So I was seriously looking at Mr. Wicks. If he said, no, I'm not prepared to come as a witness, it's fine.
At the risk of being repetitive, you have already accepted that the issues that Mr. Jeff Wicks raised were issues that were either within the knowledge of EMPD officials or issues that EMPD officials could easily have been able to establish. So I just do not understand the fixation with getting a statement from Mr. Jeff Wicks. I don't understand it.
Chair, to the extent that I did not insist on a statement from Wicks, I mentioned him, did you get the statement from him? But Chair, the issues that Jeff Wicks raised could have been raised or elicited from the EMPD officials. But if you look at it, for a very important aspect he raised was the blue lights issue. The witnesses in the matter says there was no blue lights. It would possibly need then Jeff Wicks to come and substantiate, but this is where we've got it, this is where the information is, to assist and counter what the witness is saying from EMPD. That is my engagement and my thinking when I dealt with the issue. So in requesting Jeff Wicks.
Let's move on to the second gap, the absence of a statement from Deputy Chief Mzolo, who was the accounting senior manager to whom Brigadier Mkhwanazi reported during the relevant period. How would that statement have assisted?
The statement from Deputy Chief of Police Mzolo would have assisted in the sense that when Mkhwanazi says that he was given these functions when he started to act, the incidents happened during the acting period. When he was given, he was following the instructions or what happened, they to continue from Mzolo. So that is where one of the issues I looked at, to say, but if it is coming from Mzolo, he should be coming to deny that he ever gave him to do these aspects, which was in terms of the MOU and all of the other aspects. So that is why I felt it was impressive. If we get a statement from Mzolo to say, no, but I never gave such instructions to Mkhwanazi.
I'm not sure I follow that, but I will move on. And paragraph 58, the content of DCP Gwabe's statement, which suggested that the entire senior management team of EMPD had knowledge of CAT-VIP's involvement in EMPD officials. And how was that a gap?
Chair,
the sort of gap that would have made disciplining Brigadier Mkhwanazi impossible?
Chair, in terms of the evidentiary issue, if Gwabe, he was instrumental in saying he received a 300,000 rand donation, and he informed the senior management of that donation. Now, already the donation was irregular, and the senior management didn't do anything to address it at that stage. Gwabe is very vague in terms of says 2021, 2022. So it would have been in my assessment to say that, but if the senior management of EMPD knew of the involvement of VIP, CAT VIP, and what happened, why was nothing happened thereafter? So that is my engagement to say, Gwabe, and then the other issue is, why did Gwabe receive such a donation, knowing that the city manager had to approve the donation? So these were some of the thinking patterns that I had at that stage.
I will leave it there.
But Mr. Behari, there were very specific allegations against Brigadier Mkhwanazi, Brigadier at the time. It had to do with the motor vehicles being registered in the name of Ekurhuleni, and it had to do with the blue installation of blue lights on these vehicles, or on vehicles that belong to Mr. Matala. Now, to bring in Gwabe that he had received 300,000, I think it was, assistance with stationery, the involvement of CAT VIP with EMPD historically, that seems to be red herrings, because it has nothing to do with the accusations at that time that you are being asked to speak to, in fact, the extension to which you are being asked to speak to, because the extension relates to charges about the vehicles and about the blue lights. And you are throwing in quite a number of things that have nothing to do with that, and I don't understand how you would have thought, one, that's relevant for purposes of considering an extension of a suspension, but two, why you would regard that to be a problem with these disciplinary charges against Brigadier Mkhwanazi.
Thank you, Chair. I believed that they were crucial issues because it comes into the entire investigative diary or the docket. In terms of the blue lights issue, that was the allegation against...
No, sorry, when you say it comes into the entire
the investigation
investigative
docket,
diary, what are you talking about?
the information that was in the docket itself, to talk about donations. So the donations being specific to the vehicles, that in terms of the only witness that was going to be there that I could ascertain from Erasmus was Christine. Now if Christine says that, but we did this, when Mkhwanazi comes to us, I told him what the process is.
Yes.
And that process is totally different. Or what
We've done this before. That's what Christine says. Yes.
Now, in what way then would it be an implication that you want to finalize and make sure that the case against Mkhwanazi is strong? That is what we're looking at. So if you have a witness, the sole witness being to say in terms of donations that, no, we've done this before, how would that then render the allegations against Mkhwanazi a problem? Because you have the one witness you're relying on who's saying something different.
Well, are you suggesting as head of legal that because Steyn says I've done this before, nobody can be disciplined for it, even if it is against municipal policies and against the law? Surely that's not the suggestion you're making.
No, Chair, that's not my suggestion. What I'm saying is, in looking at the matter holistically, you are looking at disciplining Mkhwanazi for the issue of the blue lights.
Registering vehicles in the name of EMPD.
The vehicles,
yes.
So the only witness there, Steyn, says it has been done before. But Steyn is the one who guided Mkhwanazi, according to his statement, to say, we accept this on a letter. Give me a letter from the donor. And on that basis, that donation happened. Because Mkhwanazi given the letter as per his directive. Now, it's not okay, because that is where my concern is. If he says that we've been dealing with it previously, we've dealt with it in this way. It means all those donations have been irregular. I think
Yes,
even
and you're saying you
Yeah.
can't discipline Mkhwanazi because it has been done before. That's what
No.
Steyn is telling us.
No, I've not said that, Chair. What I'm saying is it makes your case against, remember, we have to look at a case that is winnable. We have to look at a case that is going to be, not have any implications coming back. So no one said don't discipline Mkhwanazi. But then I'm saying is, but Mkhwanazi says he relied on that. So Chris Steyn has been doing something. So why not add? You throw your net wide enough to deal with all the aspects who are dealing with illegalities. If it's only Mkhwanazi, he would say, I've relied on Chris Steyn. And Mgwabe,
Isn't that what a disciplinary process, disciplinary hearing is about? It is to ventilate the allegations and the evidence that is presented in support thereof, and then your independent presiding officer will make a decision about it. Your management here, you proactively, that's not what you tell us, that's not what Erasmus came to discuss with you, but you take it upon yourself to start commenting on the strength of this case, that it is unwinnable or is unsustainable. So you volunteer to do that. But your volunteering and the views that you express are to discourage, because that's really what you're doing here. Your comments are to discourage. You say this case is not sustainable. That's really what you're doing. It's not sustainable because Chris Steyn told him this. You make no reference to policy. You don't say to Erasmus and to us here that, the policy of the municipality or the conduct of the municipality indeed is such that that's how it was done. Or we've always waived where the people continue to do the same thing, we generally don't discipline. You don't do any of that. What you do is you say, well, Steyn says, then you can't, why would you discipline Mkhwanazi? How can you succeed against Mkhwanazi if Steyn says that's what happened? Maybe Steyn is lying. You don't seem to have applied yourself to interrogating what Steyn says. You're happy to take it on face value and to express a view which is disadvantageous, actually, to those who want to institute disciplinary proceedings. You say, because Steyn says this case is not sustainable. I don't understand that.
Chair, my engagements to that extent was never to discourage anything, was never to discourage any disciplinary processes. It was to say that, Chair, as I mentioned, I think earlier on as well, we have been having a lot of matters. We can't be waiting for matters to go on disciplinary processes and then knowing we should have done all of these issues before that and then lose the cases, because we've lost a lot of cases at Certificate Lady. If their own EMPD officer in terms of Advocate Behari note mentioned that, from that side, which I wasn't aware of. But my own experience, when we go into the bargaining council, almost every order that are coming, which is adding to our contingent liabilities. So it was for me observing to say that, but why don't we not finalize it? What was the, if we had waited for a little while, get all these cases up and running, because Chris Steyn was there. As much as Chris Steyn could have been lying, that would have to be tested. So how do you wait for Chris Steyn to go there and lie in a formal processes, and then not have a substantiated witnesses in terms of how do you prove that he's lying? So from my side, it was never to discourage anyone. It was to look at, and again, I will reiterate here that my interest is the number of cases we're losing and why. We've looked at the assessment on that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Let's go back to Jeff Wicks. What did you want him to say? He's provided the municipality. There's a story in the newspaper.
Yeah.
He's written into the municipality. He's provided whatever he's got, including videos. And that's the evidence we've had, right? Which shows these cars. He has provided letters which list registration vehicles, the number of a number of vehicles and their registration details. So he's provided all that information. When you say statement from complainant, and in fact there's two parts to it. What did you want Jeff Wicks to say in his statement anymore? That's one. Two, why do you say he's the complainant? The EMPD is the complainant. My PAA is the complainant. Why do you say Jeff Wicks is the complainant and so must issue a statement?
Chair, the mention of Jeff Wicks and the statement from Jeff Wicks emanates from the Chief of Police writing to him to get a statement.
No, you are the one that says to Erasmus, one of the risks that undermine the sustainability of disciplinary proceedings, not even the suspension, disciplinary proceedings, you say to Erasmus, it's the absence of a statement from Jeff Wicks. So I'm not asking you about what the Chief of Police said or did. I'm saying you've identified it as one of the problems.
The problem would be, in my assessment, would have been that Jeff Wicks had information whichever his source would have been from. He writes to Rivers Peace. So to get a statement to say, this is what I've obtained, this is what I want investigation. So they have a complete chain in terms of where you emanated from and how we dealt with it. So the complainant would have been, Rivers Peace did sign a statement as a complainant as well. But in terms of going to the full value chain of the issues, in terms of what I looked at in the findings or the report there were issues that would have implicated Chief of Police. Because the whole issue about how, I went and delved into the entire thing is, how did CAT VIP and Medicaid come into the city? How did Julius Makunazi then get these donations or access the donations? Whereas they seem to be already have a relationship of CAT VIP in the city.
No, Mr. Behari, I'm not asking you, and let's not obfuscate here, I'm not asking you about how the relationship came about, how long is it. That was not the issue here. In this case, that was not the issue. The issue was someone was spotted driving in motor vehicles that have blue lights. On investigation, it was found it is Mrs. Matala. That's what Jeff Wicks reports, right? Two, Jeff Wicks provides details of motor vehicles with registration numbers, and he says these vehicles are registered to the city, in the name of the city, and they belong to Mr. Matala. Those are the issues regarding Brigadier Mkhwanazi. You then say to Colonel Erasmus, we have a problem because you don't have a statement from Mr. Wicks. Hence, then my question is, well, what did you still want Mr. Wicks to do? To say, rather. Erasmus has conducted an investigation. As instructed by Spies, we know that. He's conducted an investigation. You have that report in front of you, so you know what's in there. Why you want a statement from Jeff Wicks to say what is a question that I'm asking you. Two, I put to you that you are wrong to refer to Mr. Wicks as a complainant. He's not a complainant. He's a journalist. He's a reporter. In fact, in this case, the complainant was the chief. It was management of EMPD that complained. It's not Mr. Wicks. So this when you say to Erasmus that Wicks is the complainant and therefore must give a statement, it's all wrong. There's no basis for it.
May I respond, Chair? Chair, the issue of Wicks was that he brought the issue the complainant is not, as I said, looking at it. He brought the entire transfer of the vehicles, donations, to the attention of the city. Right. Now, why I looked at it is important in terms of proceeding to look at, maybe it's my old school or very old school, in terms of having a complete value chain in terms of where does a complaint emanate from. If it came from Wicks, that's all in good. It came from Wicks, but in terms of then linking that to the witnesses, Wicks would have been able to concretize where Chris Stanley says there was no blue lights fitted. Where do we look at other options, because it's a very serious issue about the blue lights? Where then we would look at other options in terms of who else could be proving. If Stain says there was no blue lights fitted. So it was important in terms of the entire value chain to say to him, where's the statement of Jeff Wicks? Do you have a statement of Jeff Wicks? Is it coming through? There was nothing there. I felt it was important because he's involved in that process. In some respect, he's involved in that process. If it needed to be, that you get substantiate, but where you got this, are these fake messages, where did you get that from, the source and so on, it could have been dealt with at that stage. It could have been secured as a further witness. Chair, and I think the other issue was, Christine could have been lying, and it could have been then ascertained but the other option was it could not have been lying. He could have said, but this is the process we have. If he showed whether it seizures, other issues on seizures and so on.
And he would have, my point is, he would have had the opportunity to say that at the disciplinary hearing.
Certainly.
That's my issue with this, that the Christine, that's why I say this is just a red herring, really. Christine has given a statement. It's recorded in the report that you are looking at. That is going to be part of the evidence in the disciplinary hearing. Why you choose to make it an issue that has a bearing on how you respond to a request for guidance on the suspension, it's the part that I don't understand.
Chair, in terms of Christine coming through as a witness and whatever said, yes, he'll have the opportunity at the disciplinary to deal with it. Remember, the disciplinary wasn't against him. He was a witness.
Yes.
He was an important witness for the city. And for an important witness to come there and then say, why must we lessen our case and the prospects of success in the city's case by calling a witness already who you know is not going to give evidence in support of the city's allegations? For me, it would not have supported it, the thing, because you know he's not giving evidence. What other evidence can we get to make sure that the city's case is strengthened? So that is what my approach has been.
I've heard your answer, Mr. Behari.
Thank you. Mr. Behari, just look at paragraph 56 of your statement, please. See, let's try to read it again. You say there, absence of the statement from the complainant, Mr. Wicks, notwithstanding documented attempts by EMPD to procure his cooperation. So by this point, you know they've asked him for the statement and he doesn't want to give it.
Chair, there was no direct response to say, I'm not coming. There was just a letter from the Chief of Police to him. And I asked Erasmus, was there a statement forthcoming? There was no response from Jeff Wicks to say, I'm not prepared to come.
Yes, so you say there in your own words, notwithstanding documented attempts by MPD to procure his cooperation. So you knew at this point that they've asked for it,
yes,
and he was not providing it.
Well, I was asking for information about that. Has he provided it? Has he not prepared to come through? So there is the engagements with the Erasmus to say, but your chief has written to Jeff Wicks. Has he responded, or did he just keep quiet?
And let's assume that he did not come through. How does that then result in the charges against Mr. Mkhwanazi not being sustainable? Because that's what you say in the latter part of paragraph 56. You say these gaps, the 4 gaps you have identified, they pose foreseeable risk to the sustainability of the disciplinary proceedings. So you're basically saying without these things, the proceedings are not sustainable. This is the legal advice you're giving to people who are coming to you for advice. Explain to me how the absence of that statement renders the legal proceedings unsustainable.
The absence of the statement from Jeff Wicks, as the disputes arise in the disciplinary process, it was for me to say, as I said, to look at the value chain. Where did it emanate from? How do you finalize who comes in? It's not going to be it's not a sole determinant to say that these prospects are weak, or it's not going to be sustainable. But in the entire cycle, it emanates from someone, it emanates from Jeff Wicks. What did the EMPD deal with? And did the EMPD not know about this before? Before these blue lights issues, was it the first time that the EMPD became aware of this at that stage? So, in looking at holistically at the evidence, it was very important.
I don't want you to repeat yourself about the value chain. I don't want you to repeat yourself because you've already said that. I'm asking you a simple question. How does the absence affect the legal proceedings, the disciplinary proceedings continuing? Because they can continue without that statement. I just want you to accept that.
Chair, it can continue without the
Could the
statement.
disciplinary proceedings continue without Mr. Wick's statement?
It can continue.
Let's just stop there. Now, on Christine, you say Christine was not supporting the municipality's case. I don't understand how you can say that because earlier in your evidence in chief, unprompted, you were not prompted by anyone. You said these donations were irregular and unlawful. Now, Stein confirms that he registered the vehicles because Mkwanazi said to him there were donations to the city of Ekurhuleni. So how can you then say what he says, I'm talking about Stein, does not support Ekurhuleni's case? Because the very thing you said unprompted, that it shows that these things were irregular, that's the statement from Stein.
Chair, I will reiterate, yes, unprompted. Those donations were unlawful.
Stop there.
Right.
Now, that information comes from Christine. And we can take you there if you want us to, because we've got Stein's letter in front of us.
Maybe, please, if I can look at that. If you say, does Christine say it was unlawful?
No, Christine is not a lawyer. Christine is a fleet controller.
Yeah.
Christine says, Mkwanazi told me that CAT VIP services donated these vehicles to EMPD or Ekurhuleni. And he showed me a memorandum and a letter of donation. And I was satisfied that those documents were what he says they are, and I proceeded to register. Now, unprompted, you said that's unlawful and irregular.
Yes.
So what Stein says happened, you confirm that it's irregular and unlawful. So why then do you say Stein does not support the employer's case?
But Stein goes more, Chair. Stein goes more to that. He says, well, these things have been done in this process on other occasions.
But, Mr. Behari, you deal with those things by investigating them and charge those who were responsible in the past for doing similar things. It has nothing to do with whether you proceed or you do not proceed against Julius Mkwanazi. If people have done something wrong in the past, and as a result of Stein's statement, you become aware of it, you investigate them and you charge them. That's how you deal with it. You do not say it impacts on the sustainability of the charges against Mkwanazi. You do not say
Chair, no, Chair, respectfully, the issue of Christine going further to that and say it was done, that had an impact. Because if Mkwanazi says he went to Christine, he asked him what was done, Christine says, come next day. He goes back, what do you need? So Christine, dealing with other transactions in that fleet and arrangement, guides him in this way. Then he took guidance from Christine. And that is why I'm saying to say, I'm not saying it's unsustainable in total, but the witness is going to come and say, but I guided him, we're doing this. So how is it then to say that you haven't followed the process, which I agree, but now Christine guides in this way? So why not look at the impact, but why is Christine guiding something on a totally incorrect process? Then who knew about that stuff? Because it was not a donation in the way it is done in terms of the city. Could it be a donation dealt with by fleet and other departments in the province or whatever it is? But from the city side, from what we request from a donation, it is not the correct process.
So you're raising defenses for Julius Mkwanazi. Is that what you're doing?
Chair, it is not an issue of raising defenses. It's an issue of looking at what were the possible defenses in terms of prospects of success, which affects us going forward. If these are the issues or the gaps that we identify, and we don't look at how we can close it, you can't wait for us to go into the open environment, whether it's disciplinary or bargaining council or courts, and then decide, no, these are the issues. It is not about that, Chair. It's about being proactive in the sense that it's not about a defense for Julius. It's about what the witness on behalf of the city is going to say. And is it a possibility that that court or whichever environment could take the city's, the witness of the city, which we call the witness. So I'm saying that it's not about a defense, Chair. It's about dealing with the issue and not waiting to lose a case. And then...
Last question. I'm mindful of the lunch break. Now, you are head of legal for the city of Ekurhuleni. and an investigating person from Ekurhuleni comes to you with this information. When they look at paragraph 55 to 60 of your statement, where you say to them, these are material gaps, they have the effect of affecting the sustainability of disciplinary proceedings against Mukhwanazi. I mean, what did you expect Chris Erasmus to think looking at this? Because the effect of this is that we don't have a good case against Mukhwanazi. Isn't that the effect of this?
Chair, no. It is about becoming aware of what are the risks if we proceed in this form.
Exactly.
No, Chair, it's about becoming aware of what are the risks if we proceed in this form, and how do we as a city ensure that where we are doing the discipline, we are able to secure what our intended outcome would be. So in this serious note of what's been going on, our intention would be to secure. We can't go on a wishy-washy or say, okay, let's go on with the case, and then find maybe some way it'll be cured during the evidentiary issue. That's not the way I've been dealing with those methods. We look at and there is what I'm saying that someone will say to you, but are you not overreaching your side?
I'm going to leave it there. I think.
Let's adjourn and resume at 14:15.